Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, here we are after market close on Wednesday, September 20th. We're going to take a look at GOEV today. So last time we looked at GOEV, we were looking at this big upturn. And since then, it's drawn down from about 69 cents all the way down today to about 47 cents, as you see. And before we get into the exact levels and sort of how things are playing out, the thing that I'm most interested in at the moment is where is this going to catch a bottom? Is it going to come down to this 43.49 level, which would be in line with this candle, and this candle to sort of set up a double bottom scenario there? Or is it going to come down fully to this 42, which is obviously this candle, and set up a double bottom opportunity there? Or two other options. Or is it going to directly just move straight through those levels and set a new low, lower than 42? I'm really interested to see if it gets down to those levels, what the price action does at those points. And then the other option is, it can either wrestle with this 47.12 level, and if it can get support over it and confirm support over it, then, maybe it comes back and retests this 50 and kind of goes from there. So it may not have to come down to these levels at all. It may come down further than these levels, or it may set up a double bottom opportunity at those levels. I don't know. This isn't a prediction channel. Let me just say this for a moment. With all the new people coming in and watching recently, they're looking for a definitive answer. What I do is I set levels and I set trend lines. And what I'm looking for is what the price does when it reaches the levels that I set, or when it breaks the trend lines that I set. I'm looking to see what the price action does. This is not a prediction channel. This is not a crystal ball. This is, if anything, sort of a roadmap, if you want to think of it that way. And when we hit certain spots on the roadmap, like these levels, what does the price action do? I don't know what it's going to do. And if you're watching a channel that tells you that they know what it's going to do, you're probably getting fooled. Okay, so just so that that's out of the way. One other thing that I would note, I don't know that this is going to continue to take shape or not, but something that could be potentially taking shape here. Let me see where it would potentially initiate from. So if we want to sort of conservatively draw this in right around here and say we've been under this downtrend line since about September 1st and has shucked off of this every time that it tried to make an effort to break it, including today, that would be the most important thing to look for if it's going to break this downtrend. And I know that sounds obvious, but what I mean by that is, aside from any of these levels, the most critical thing, the most oppressive thing keeping the price action continuing to recede is this downtrend resistance, because as you see, every time it makes an attempt at it, it gets pushed off. That's not necessarily the case with all of these levels, right? It made an attempt at this level here and found support for a day, found support here, and then lost it. So the one sort of constant factor is the downtrend resistance, and it continuously shrugging that off every time it runs into it. So that's why I say that's the most critical component as far as I can see it. Now, the other thing that I would note is, while recent days, the larger volume has been consumed by sell volume. You see these candles here and this one here. Preceding that, all of these buy candles were higher volume than these. So there might be some opportunity coming up if some folks get sort of reinvigorated, reinterested in GOEV, whether that's because of a catalyst or just because of the price action, for it to, pick up some volume and sort of regain its footing a little bit. Don't know if that'll happen, but it's something that I'm sort of interested in watching. Now, there's a pretty big gap percentage-wise from this 43 level up to this 47 level. I'm kind of interested if anything has sort of taken shape that we should note. I mean, it is really fairly barren here. If anything, I'd put something around this 44, 45 level, and I'll show you why as I put it in here. That's not going to let me get it this time. 44, let me see, what if we just pin it about to the bottom of this wick? Yeah, 44.50-ish. Yeah, that's pretty good. So the bottom of this wick, the top of this wick, and the top of this candle body. So that's sort of not as critical as some of these other levels as far as consistent and repeated price action moving through, but it does have recent clear, distinct price action at those levels. So if it continues to draw down tomorrow, I would maybe look for it to, brush up against this 44.50, see what happens there, and kind of go from there. Now, I think that's basically my look on Webull. If we zoom in today and sort of see what these levels look like on the intraday, you see it came in today, tried several times to get resistance at 47.12, and what I call that typically is it's going to the well too many times. It's drying up the well. So essentially the buyers that were sitting there, they continue to hit the buy button, but then eventually they get burned out. It slips, it comes back up a little bit, right? You had some buy action obviously down here today around the 46-ish level. That consumed here and it consumed here, but eventually those buyers get tapped out and it pushes through, and we saw that happen here and we saw that happen there. Now it didn't come down all the way to this 44.50 level today, but it did situate itself slightly higher than yesterday's lows. So maybe a little something cooking there. I don't know. Obviously, it was a relatively flat day, but something to maybe sort of at least keep your eye on, so that if it's not going to stretch down and test the double bottom levels that we talked about, this 43.49 or this 42, that could be a reason why maybe it would start to at least stabilize around the level where it is at close today. But we'll have to wait and see, obviously. All right, now on the think or swim side of things, this is the hour time frame, just so you know. Spent some time yesterday and heading into the open today above the mid-range of the channel, but you see very quickly lost at the 11 o'clock candle, lost that support and flipped it to resistance, and then just shrugged off of it the entire rest of the day. Made a valiant effort here at this 4 o'clock candle, but shrugged off of it and settled down here. So at least it was able to push back to the mid-range, which on these three candles, it wasn't even able to push back to the mid-range. Now, interestingly enough, it did spend a bunch, I guess all of yesterday basically, and much of today in trigger mode on the TTM squeeze indicator. Now, if that will result in a big move or not, I don't know, but you see back here, it was triggering while this sideways action was happening. And then when it did fire, you got a pretty solid move from about, say, 50, and then, obviously it dropped down to this 44.5 level just as it started to re-trigger. So percentage-wise, a pretty big move as it triggered and then fired. So maybe if we get a trigger and now it's firing right now, I'm interested to see. You had a big red candle here on the initial fire, and then a second green candle, which was, like I said, a pretty valiant effort to try to stretch to that mid-range on the second firing candle. So I'm interested to see what that means. Just because the firing candle initiates in one direction doesn't mean that that's the direction that the move is going. So it also just requires patience, and again is an indicator, and no indicator is 100%, may not even be anywhere close to 100%, and it is certainly not a crystal ball. So keep all of these things in mind, and if someone is trying to sell you something else, I would be very skeptical. So I'm mostly interested as we get into tomorrow to see if this is able to continue to wrestle with the mid-range of that channel, and if it gets support, if it can start to make a move, right? Is there a move that's going to be associated with this trigger and fire, or is it going to be sort of a misindication of a move? All right, folks, I hope that your trading week is going well, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.